Hello, my name is Macy. I'm a 42-year-old woman who's been married twice. My second marriage has been amazing. My first was a train wreck. My first husband's name is Bobby, and we were high school sweethearts. We were your typical jock and cheerleader couple. We had a good time together, and he made me happy at that time. He was also my first relationship, so that was why I went so above and beyond for him. I thought he was my forever, and I sure acted like it too. We planned to go to the same university so we could be together, but in my second year, at 19 years old, I got pregnant. Now, my family was not happy, and neither was I. My mom warned me constantly that life would not be blissful, especially with Bobby. My family never liked him, although they could never tell me why, other than just that something about him felt off. Of course, as a teenager, I wanted to prove them wrong and rebel against them, so I ignored all their concerns. Our families agreed to support us until we graduated and got good jobs, which I was and still am super grateful for. Bobby and I got married in court, and we had our first child. At first, Bobby was an amazing father. I felt like I was proving everyone wrong. And then, about 2 years later, I got pregnant again. This time, I was a college graduate, but I had to quit my job so I could stay back and take care of the kids. Bobby worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. It was a tough life, but at that time, I felt that as long as I had Bobby by my side, nothing could make me feel bad. But a couple of months after our second child, Bobby began to behave very differently. I tried to talk to him about it, but he never budged. And then one day, I had taken the kids out for a walk and came back to an empty apartment. None of Bobby's things were there. I panicked, of course, and seeing me panic made the kids cry. I tried calling him several times, but each time took me to voicemail. I remember rushing to my mother's place with 2 kids that were bawling while I tried my best to hold back my tears. My mother looked alarmed when she opened the door and let me in. What happened? I think Bobby left me. What? What do you mean? I took the kids for a walk, and when I got back, the house was empty of all his things. I can't get a hold of him either. Oh no, do you know why he might have left? I don't know. He'd been acting very differently for a while, but he wouldn't talk to me at all, and then today just happened. Okay, calm down a little. We should wait a little while, and if he doesn't show up, we'll file for divorce, and I'll help you out. But I loved him. How could he do this to his children? I know. I wish I could find him for you and ask him all these questions, but we have to move on. Not because it'll heal you, but because you have 2 kids to raise. My mom was right. So I spent the next few months painfully getting over him while raising 2 kids who looked a lot like him. I cried myself to sleep for many nights, but eventually months turned into years, and I slowly got over the pain. My kids obviously asked questions about their father, and when they were old enough, I told them the truth. They were devastated, but surprisingly understanding about their past. Together, as a family, we learned to live past the pain. My mom was obviously the biggest help for us, and she made raising 2 kids easier than it would have been all by herself. I happened to meet my current husband, Fred, at a bar 13 years after Bobby left me. I was out with my friends for one of their birthdays. My mom had the kids, and I figured it was the best time to let loose and have a little fun with my friends. For the better of the night, I stuck to my friends, and we just chatted and laughed for the most part. Towards the end of the night, I got approached by Fred. My friends had been begging me to get with the guy for years, but I was always too traumatized by Bobby to ever try again. So when Fred approached me, my friends left to go watch from further away as I made conversation with him. Fred started by asking me if he could buy me a drink. I was not going to turn down a free drink, so I obviously said yes. We waited until we got our drinks to properly start talking. So, what brings you here? Ah, it's my friend's birthday and I'm just here to celebrate with her. That's nice. How about I send over some drinks for all of them? All of them? There are 7 more people there. It's all right. I'll make up all the money I spent here in the next 2 hours, so no worries. Whoa, so you're rich, rich? Ha, I guess you could say that. Of course I'm not trying to brag or anything. No, it's a great thing to flaunt. Not a lot of people get to do that, and not to mention you aren't being a prick about it. You're buying a bunch of strangers drinks because I told you that it was one of their birthdays. What can I say? I have a particular weakness for pretty women. You're so weak, you'll believe everything they say, even lies? Yes, of course. Although, did you lie? No. It is one of their birthdays, but it is concerning that pretty women make you weak. You should get that checked. How about you help me with it? Maybe if I had a pretty woman by my side, I'd only have a weakness for one woman. I could think of that. It was such a self-esteem boost to have been called pretty by Fred, especially because Fred looked gorgeous. He looked like he was worthy of being on the cover of a big magazine like Vogue. I was also surprised by my ability to casually flirt back with him. That was not something I was usually capable of. I was very much an introvert, so I don't know if it was the drink or just the aura that Fred radiated, but I felt comfortable enough to be flirty. Eventually my friends came and got me, but not before profusely thanking Fred for the drinks. Before I left, Fred and I exchanged numbers, and from then on, we were constantly talking to each other. It started off as texts, and then we would call each other whenever we had nothing going on, or if we had something interesting to share. We also started meeting up a lot more often. At first, we met up in very public places, but as the months went by, we started hanging out at each other's places. I remember the way my jaw dropped when I walked into his house because it was quite literally a mansion. Fred laughed at my shock and told me that I should get used to his wealth because it would soon be mine. Fred was very open about wanting to marry me. He told me countless times how he had never felt so comfortable around anyone aside from me, and that only made me love him more. Fred was also more than open to me having kids. I remember him being particularly upset for me when I told him about Bobby. Ever since I told him, he went above and beyond to show me just how much I meant to him. Fred and Bobby were worlds apart, and it wasn't until Fred that I understood why so many people did not want me marrying or even just being with Bobby. I was glad that I got out of it, but I hated the way it happened. Fred helped me heal and forget all about it, which I was super grateful for. We only dated a year before getting married. We had a destination wedding and we flew out all our guests, which were technically just a handful of them, because we only wanted those who were really close to us to be there. My kids were super happy for me and told me constantly that they loved Fred, which in my head was another big win. Life from then moved on very smoothly. Every single worry I had was eased. Fred helped my kids out with their education as well, even though I told him that I would take care of it. He showed me that he accepted us as a package deal and not just me and then my kids. He had my kids' rooms decorated and set up to their liking even before we moved in together. Fred did everything that Bobby didn't and more. That was a true point of healing for my small family. And that's how our family grew from then on. Fred and I had a child of our own, yet he never treated my kids differently. About a year after Fred and I got married, my kids asked him to legally adopt them, which once again was a turning point in our family. After that, we became one big family. We did everything that families did, like going out to eat, going on vacations, doing fun things, etc. I was also doing well in my career, and Fred, well, his company was also doing amazing. There was not a single thing in my life that was wrong. Before I knew it, 7 years had passed. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello? Look who it is, it's Macy. Who is this? Don't you recognize me? I don't think you remember much anyway. It's Bobby here. How are you doing? Bobby? What the hell? How did you even get my number? I forgot how whiny you are. I just happened to come across your number and I thought I'd give you a call to see how life has been treating you since you left me? Oh, come on, Macy. We were having way too much trouble and both you and I know that we would have gotten divorced anyway. So you just chose to leave without saying a word? Well, I wanted to avoid all the emotional drama, so I did what I had to do. You are a piece of work. A pretty rich piece of work. Do you know what good it has done me to have left you? I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you being serious right now? Yes, I married this really rich woman who had kids, but I was willing to overlook it because of her money. She came through though because she got me this amazing job that pays me so much money. I'm living my absolute dream. So you abandoned the kids you did have to father someone else's kids? You got to do what you got to do, am I right? Please never call me again. Goodbye. I was seething. The pure audacity of that man to call me only to brag about his new rich lifestyle. Of course, a part of me wanted to carry on the conversation with him so I could find out where he was, only so I could go there and punch him. But at the same time, I was so overwhelmed with so many different emotions that I could barely think straight. But after I cut the call on him, I felt so much hurt. Not for me, but for my kids. My poor kids grew up for the better parts of their lives without a father who was in fact too busy fathering his new wife's children. I knew we were struggling, but what did he expect? We were only high school graduates when we had our first child. Where in the world would we have gotten money for ourselves? At the same time, I felt disgust roll over me. He was the classic definition of a sleazebag. He clearly wasn't one to give someone attention unless they had something to offer him. I decided to block his number because I didn't want to deal with him anymore. The chapter of my life had been closed for long enough and I never wanted it back open. I told Fred about it later on that night and he was understandably upset. But he was also glad that I blocked Bobby's number. We decided to move forward from that. About a week later, I got a call from another unknown number. It was Bobby once again. At this point, I was beginning to get frustrated. He called to brag again about his luxurious lifestyle. He told me all about the new expensive car he had just bought and how his kids were doing amazing at school. I didn't care to be polite this time and just hung the phone up on him. That did not stop him. He kept calling every week after that to keep telling me about all his expensive purchases. I kept blocking him with every number he called, but it seemed like he kept using different numbers to call me. At some point, I stopped picking up because then he only called me frequently. It seemed like he derived some sort of sick pleasure from bothering me so much. One particular day, I was at work and I was stressed when Bobby called me. "Oh, hey, Macy. Can't you just leave me alone?" "Oh, come on. I'm making up for the time that's been lost." "Well, you're 20 years too late. The kids don't care about you and neither do I. Leave me alone." "You know you love it, Macy." "I really don't. I don't want to hear anything about you or your new good life." "Why? Are you jealous? Are you jealous I'm living the life that you'll never be able to live?" "I can assure you I don't." "Well, here's something that will definitely make you jealous. I just got a promotion." "I don't give a crap." "You know you're jealous. I just got a promotion at Digidome, one of the finest media companies. I'm going to hang up." I was furious and annoyed, but something he said kept tickling my brain. I was way too angry to think about it at that moment, so I let it go. When I got back home afterward, I thought about what it was that Bobby said that tickled my brain, and then it hit me. He said he worked for Digidome, one of the finest media companies, which I had to agree with. They were responsible for hiring and recruiting some of the most talented influencers and journalists in our city. The reason that I kept thinking about it, Fred is the CEO and founder of the company. Bobby was working for my husband. I could not believe how wonderfully the universe aligned for me. That meant that I could finally teach Bobby a good lesson, not only for bothering me, but also for abandoning his children. I waited with excitement until Fred got back home. When he did, I told him all about what had happened during the day. Did something happen? Why do you seem so hyper? Nothing happened per se, but I did find out something big. Oh, what is it? So, Bobby called again. That sick son of a gun. I swear if I had any way to get a hold of him, I would beat him up real good. That's the thing. He may be way closer than we ever expected. Huh? What do you mean? Well, today he called me to brag about his big promotion at work, which is Digidome. You mean to tell me that he works at my company? Yeah. At first, I couldn't help but think his company name sounded really familiar, and then it hit me. Did you really not remember the company I created? Listen, I was way too angry to remember my own name. Cut me some slack. I'm kidding. Anyways, do you want me to fire him? Absolutely, but before you do, I was wondering if there was going to be any way to humiliate him. Definitely. Bold of you to think that I wasn't going to fire him in the worst way possible for him. With that, we began planning how to go about creating the best revenge plan. We decided that we would wait a few more weeks before executing our plan to fire him. That was because we were going to record his calls to me and have them played in front of everyone. The company was going to hold a huge event in 2 months, and to our luck, Bobby was going to be in charge of it. There were going to be several big names present, and we were going to tarnish his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I was able to pick up all of Bobby's calls without getting frustrated or angry. Just knowing that I had the biggest upper hand was enough to put a smile on my face as I listened to him ramble about his wealth and my lack of it. But this time, I made sure to record every conversation. These conversations were going to come back to bite him hard, and I couldn't wait for it. At the end of the 2 months, the event happened. I originally didn't plan to go because I didn't like big crowds or having to talk to a lot of people, which was why no one really knew who the big boss's wife was. However, this event was where I would make my appearance. I wanted to see Bobby's fall while I sat on the throne. Fred bought me this gorgeous and very expensive dress, and that was what I wore. I stayed in the car until Fred called me because we didn't want Bobby to see me and make a run for it. I only entered when Fred gave his speech, in which he told everyone about how he wanted to introduce his wife for the first time. When I walked up on that stage, Bobby was standing there. I saw his face drop and pale. I smirked at him as I walked by. He pulled out his handkerchief to dab the sweat that was all over his face. Fred then went on to praise me and talk about how much of an impact I had had on him these past 7 years, and how it had been a joy to raise my kids with me. With every praise Fred aimed at me, I saw Bobby sweat even more. I beamed with pride as the crowd clapped for me, and then Fred's speech took a turn. He began to talk about how I had been getting harassed by my ex-husband recently. He told the crowd about how my ex-husband had abandoned me and my kids to go father another woman's children just because she had wealth. But the universe had different plans for my ex-husband because he was working for his company. The crowd gasped and erupted into murmurs about who my ex could have been. Fred asked everyone to quiet down and told them that he was going to reveal who it was. Bobby kept looking towards the exit, but he knew that if he dashed it, Fred would not even have to reveal who it was because he would have outed himself. Fred then pointed towards Bobby and told everyone that it was him. The crowd once again erupted in murmurs. Bobby looked like he was about to pass out, but Fred wasn't done yet. He told everyone that he had proof of all of this and proceeded to play the recordings of all the calls that Bobby had made to me in the past few weeks. Bobby stilled as he heard everything. Fred then announced that because of everything that Bobby did, he would no longer be working with his company. The crowd cheered for Fred and me as we walked off the stage. Bobby was escorted off the event and the rest of it went smoothly. I had served my revenge and there was nothing sweeter than that. Fred and I had a blast at that event, and I even managed to find someone who offered me a position at their firm. The day after the event, I got my last phone call from an unknown number. "You're awfully bold to call me again after last night. You tricked me." "Whatever do you mean?" "You absolute witch. Don't play stupid with me. How could you not tell me that you were married again? And that too, married to my boss?" "Like I told you several times, Bobby, I simply didn't care about you." "I know that, but the decent thing for you to do was to inform me." "So you would only stop harassing me if you knew who my husband was? And if my husband wasn't your boss, you would have continued to do it?" "Don't twist my words." "I'm not twisting anything. And you're one to talk about being decent, Bobby. You know what decent thing you have done? Not abandon your family. If you could do something like that, I can do something like this. Have fun with your current family and I hope you'll find a new job." "I don't have a current family. My wife left me because of yesterday and she took the kids. And it's all because of you." "I didn't do anything. You did this to yourself. If you had just not called me, your life would have been what you had always wanted it to be. But I guess you can't have your cake and eat it too. Goodbye, Bobby, and good luck." It felt liberating to finally get back at Bobby and to know that I destroyed everything good in his life. I hope that Bobby learns to never mess with me or my family again because he will never get anything good out of that. Fred and I continue to thrive together and our kids have grown into wonderful adults. My life is once again going smoothly and I no longer stress out about Bobby's calls. I'm finally vindicated and I feel way lighter than I have for the first time in a long while. Thank you for listening to my story.